Chapter 20. Government and Politics. There are within our world perhaps only a dozen organizations which shape the courses of our various destinies as rigidly as the regularly constituted governments. This is a quote by Franklin D. Roosevelt's son, Eliot. Be thankful we're not getting all the government we're paying for. Ancient Rome declined because it had a Senate. Now what's going to happen to us with both a Senate and a House? This is a quote about U.S. politics by Will Rogers. I was always brought up to believe when I was growing up that the government and the politicians are voted into power in order to represent the people and to run or manage the country effectively and efficiently on behalf of those people that voted them into power. How naive and trusting of politicians and governments I was whilst growing up. What a complete fool I had been in the past, but since the blatant lies that were told about Iraq and the supposed weapons of mass destruction, I slowly began to awaken from my slumber. Now I am fully awake to the blatant lies, propaganda and corruption that surrounds politicians and governments. I've not voted for years and have no intention of doing so in the future either. Have you learned that according to two separate investigations, one by the FBI which has now been buried, that 40% of top DC elected politicians and officials are members of occult-linked mystery religion groups and practice perversions from the dark side such as pedophilia, child sacrifice and S&M? Have you learned that these acts of perversion, torture and murder are typically videoed and are occasionally used to blackmail them and keep them within parameters prescribed by the establishment hierarchy top policy makers? This is a quote by Preston James Ph.D. William Bramley in his book entitled The Gods of Eden refers to the work of Machiavelli, who found that breeding conflict between people can be an effective tool for maintaining social and political control over a populace, and for the technique to be the most effective it must do the following: erect conflicts and issues which will cause people to fight among themselves rather than against the perpetrator. Remain hidden from view as the true instigator of the conflicts. Lend support to all warring parties. Be viewed as the benevolent source which can solve the conflicts. Does this scenario ring any bells? Politicians do this amongst themselves as well as other political parties on behalf of their hidden hands. The secret government controls the politicians in order to control us, the masses, by initiating the disagreeing and fighting among ourselves. The whole aim of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed and hence, clamorous to be led to safety, by menacing it with an endless series of hobgoblins, all of them imaginary. This is a quote by H. L. Mencken. Here are some interesting channeled words from my book Spirituality from the Stars, Politics, created by men, for men to control men. It consumes your media, the power it heralds over your daily lives, how it created its very own power out of misuse of power, and yet you tolerate it unknowingly by accepting the changes within your lives it upholds. We wish you could witness the motivations of those within your realms of power and your boys' clubs, some of them influencing your politicians, your people of power and in power. The faces you see in your media, being controlled by others behind the scenes, passing new laws as they see fit without properly consulting you and other humans, not consulting the people they are supposed to serve, the people whose lives they so affect. The secretive governments and politicians hiding behind your media darlings. These are not the real politicians. They are merely the showmen being controlled like puppets on a string. Governments that in the majority of cases act within their own best interests once they are in power, but still are merely the shadows to the real governments controlling your nations. You are told what you need to be told, what is deemed only necessary. The power of your colored paper, your tender, is rife and still all influencing your politicians that you are tired of listening to. Those policies passed that do not echo your thoughts and morals, your beliefs or feelings. The election of untrustworthy individuals goes on and on and on. Why is this? We're not afraid to entrust the American people with unpleasant facts, foreign ideas, alien philosophies and competitive values. For a nation that is afraid to let its people judge the truth and falsehood in an open market is a nation that is afraid of its people. This is a quote by JFK. In 1983-4, I warned of a takeover of world governments being orchestrated by these people. There was an obvious plan to subvert true democracies, and selected leaders were not being chosen based upon character but upon loyalty to an economic system run by the elites and dedicated to preserving their power. All we have now are pseudo-democracies. This is a quote by Dr. Johannes Koppel.